So most of you will probably know this by now. After I unbox a kit and start the build, I always start with the body. This one is no exception, so I took the body out of the box, started sanding it with some 600 grit in order to get it smooth and also a bit grippy for the primer and paint that will follow. I will also be scribing out the panel lines to make them a bit deeper, and of course remove all of those mold lines. The body is now prepped and ready for primer, so before I apply the primer I blow over it once again with some air to remove any of the loose or remaining dust, then start on the primer first on the hard to reach easy to forget spots, and then the rest of the body will also receive a light first coat. This bus had a bit more surface area than the usual car I did, so I had to refill the primer in between and then finish this coat off. After this coat was done, I set it aside for about 5 minutes to dry, filled up the airbrush with some more paint, and after 5 minutes I moved on to applying the second coat in pretty much the same manner as I did the first. With the second coat of primer now applied, that was also the final coat of primer. It was nice and smooth, did not need any adjustment with any sanding, so I could just clean out the airbrush quickly and fill it up with the first color that I'm going to apply. If you want to see a video on how I clean my airbrush, I have it somewhere on my channel. It is called How to Clean Your Airbrush. With that all said and done, I decided to go with that first color, and that is from an Aston Martin, especially from the 007 James Bond movies, the Casino Royale Gray. I thought it would look really cool and give a super cool and retro look on this build, specifically with the second color that I'm going to be applying later, and also with the wheels that I chose for this one. So just like the primer, the first coat was on. I set it aside for about 5 minutes to dry off, filled up the airbrush with some more paint, and applied a second coat. In this case, the second coat is also the final coat of this color, as it covered really nicely and did not need a third coat. After that was all said and done, I cleaned out the airbrush again, set the model aside for about 60 minutes to cure, and then started masking it off with some Kip tape. You could also use some Tamiya tape or any tape you prefer. I have links in the description to the tapes I use. The bottom half is all nicely taped up, so the top half was ready for its first coat. I decided to go with a pearl black for an Audi R8, as in the dark it is a really nice black color, and with some sunshine or a bright light, it has a really nice reflective pearl in it. So I firstly started with all those hard to reach, easy to forget spots, as there are really many of those on this one. With the 23 windows, I had to do 23 window frames. And with those all done, I could move on to applying a nice coat on the rest of the parts as well. I did this in 2 coats, but I'm not going to bother showing it as it took really long and looks pretty much the same. And with black on top of the black, it pretty much looks like I'm blowing air onto the body, and most of you don't want to see that. So as mentioned, the first coat was let to dry for about 5 minutes, filled up the airbrush with more paints, applied a second coat in a similar fashion to the first, let it dry for another 5 minutes, cleaned out the airbrush, and then carefully removed all the masking tape to reveal the color scheme. With all of the masking tape removed, I gave it another 5 minutes to dry, and in that meantime I also mixed up the clear in order to spray it with some high gloss clear. Firstly, I did those hard to reach easy to forget spots on the bottom, and then moved on to the rest of the body, applying it in 3 coats.